the cloud, because that's, yeah. So who's hanging out behind you there?
It's actually a pediatric skeleton. So for a project I worked on a few years ago, uh, we had to build. They contracted me to build a complete adolescent and pediatric 3D skeleton because none of them exist in the 3D market at the moment.
Wow.
So we
So you're
bought these models here, like you see there, that were cast from real live skeletons. So we got permission to be able to basically eyeball it and recreate them. We couldn't digitally scan it or anything, but they gave us permission to sculpt it from site and use it as a reference. So
very cool. I mean, it actually brings back memories of going to the catacombs in Italy when I was a little
oh,
kid.
I've been to the ones in Paris.
Yeah, it's
So that's we took my daughter when she came with us, and my one daughter, and we didn't tell her where we were going. So we just went on this walk for the day, and like, hey, guess where we are?
oh dear, how old
She
was
was
she at the
not
time?
happy.
How old was she at the time?
Like 14,
Hmm.
but she was not happy with us.
And didn't trust you for the rest of the trip.
Yeah, exactly. But she got to go to Paris, so
There you go. And it's probably the only thing she'll remember.
yeah, yeah,
Not quite.
we had a
But
good time.
the other thing I recall about that spot was, aside from the shelves, I guess, of bones and it being dark and cold, was all the way at the back. There was a tiny casket of a girl. Let me see. She was probably, I don't know, I'll say 4 or 5. And
Wow.
however old she was perfectly preserved.
Yeah,
And the hair and the skin, the dress, it was so freaky to see
yeah,
it, and there
yeah,
she was, looked like she was sleeping. So amidst all of these bones, and then you see, I don't know, it's,
yeah. It's bizarre.
yeah,
The
really
things we do.
the things we do. That's right. The things you do. And
Yeah, us crazy people, medical illustrators.
so I have some questions I'd love
All
to
right,
ask you. And
I can do that.
okay, cool. I'm just pulling them up in front of me. Um, so let's see where to begin. I mean, I'd love to, instead of me telling you what your bio is, why don't you tell me what your bio
Oh
is? I
my.
read it on your website.
Well, I
And
was born on February no,
now, listen, it's your bio. February what?
15th. Missed Valentine's Day by a day. But I went to the Cleveland Institute of Art
Right.
in Ohio, and which was a 5-year undergraduate program. So it's 2 years. What made it unique at the time was it was 2 years of pure fine art training,
Mm-hmm.
and then you apply to your area of specialty, which mine was medical illustration. I transferred in my first year from Montana State University, and um, went through the first 2 years. And I knew I wanted to do medical illustration, but the fine art principle was always very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So did that, got into the program, and then it's 3 years within the program, and all the classes are taken at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine and Case's campus. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going through gross anatomy with the med students
Right.
and everything. So it's quite the shock to the system.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because on your website it says that you were studying graduate level surgery and illustration techniques. So
Yeah,
surgery, you were in surgery with them? You were watching?
yeah. Most medical illustration programs, well, used to be. I don't know today with all the new with the HIPAA laws and so
Mm,
forth how much they actually get to go into surgery anymore. But we used to go in and observe the surgeries and sketch and make notes and so forth. During my 5th year there, Bill Westwood set up a special exchange for me and a colleague to go down to the Medical College of Georgia, and we
mm-hmm.
spent a semester down there over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
and it was an exchange. So we got credit for it at the Institute of Art because they offered some classes that the Institute didn't offer at the time. So we were able to do a ton of surgical illustration from that and train with some of the greats like David Mascaro and so forth.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a great opportunity.
And it sounds like you knew early on that this was something that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
How did you discover the world of medical illustration, and and what
If
drew you to it?
if you add to your question list when you talk to medical illustrators, it's a fun game. If you ask them when they found out about the profession,
Mm-hmm.
most people can pretty much tell you what they were wearing the day they heard about it.
Uh-huh.
So
That's cool.
I remember, yeah, I
What were
was in
you
high
wearing? Then
school,
what were you wearing?
jeans and a t-shirt. I was in high school. What else would you wear? So I was in high school art class, and the teacher was doing a demo around his desk, and we're all crowded around watching him draw. And he's like, "Oh, hey, by the way, I was talking to a friend of mine who she has an interesting job. She's a medical illustrator." And we're all like, "What the heck is that?" And so he kind of explained what they did, and right then it was, like clap of thunder, clouds open up, ray of sunshine. It's like I knew exactly that's what I was gonna do. Yeah. And most medical illustrators can tell you exactly the same kind of story. So it's just always being into art and sciences. Once you find out about it, it's just like, oh my God, there's
Right.
something here exactly that fits my bill.
Right.
So it
It's
was
the
pretty cool.
Reese's peanut butter cup,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right? It's the perfect marriage of the two.
Yep. Absolutely.
So do you consider yourself an artist or a scientist or some of both, or,
I guess
I know you call what you call yourself a medical illustrator, but, you're bringing,
I would say more of an artist than a scientist.
uh-huh.
I think we help. Um, I'm a visual storyteller,
Mm-hmm.
or a visual problem solver is what I refer to myself on my website and so forth, because we help people tell their stories, and we have the knowledge to understand it. I'm not typically doing research and so forth, but people have difficulty explaining their stuff, what they're trying to do, and they're stuck on these ideas, but they have no idea how to translate that or get that simplified down in a way that people can understand. So whether I'm doing photography, whether I'm doing illustration, whether I'm building a sculpture in the backyard or what have you, I'm telling a story. Same way, as a movie, it's just doing it in a shorter context. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really trying to, we tell lots of stories.
And yeah, I think of stories and I think of an arc, right? Sort of a
Mm-hmm.
beginning and a middle and an end. But when it's something static like an illustration, maybe it isn't necessarily static because you can
So if you have
show.
like a cover of a magazine,
Yeah.
you have roughly about 3 seconds is the general rule of thumb in the teaching, that if it's laying on the table in a doctor's office or it's on somebody's desk, you have about 3 seconds worth of visual time to catch their attention and get them interested in what it is. So you have to factor all that in with your color choices, your lighting, your drama, the textures you choose to use, the information that you choose to portray, how you choose to portray that in a way that it can stand out from everything else that may happen to be on the table around them, be interesting enough to gauge their attention, but a quick enough read so that they can see it and go, oh, wow, this is important to me. I need to stop what I'm doing and pick that up. So,
Interesting. And it's ironically, in my business, we say the same thing. You have 3 seconds to catch somebody's interest. If you're, auditioning, they're listening to your audio. Within 3 seconds, they know if they want to continue listening or if they're moving on to the next one. It's that
yeah,
fast.
yeah.
So,
And if your solution is too complicated or too convoluted, especially for a cover, if you're getting into a method of action, long spread out, that that is showing complicated, this does this, then that is this, then there's
Mm-hmm.
this. Obviously, that's going to take longer to digest. That's not a graphic that's meant to be digested in 3 seconds. But you still have to take some of that into equation, because people will scan it and try to. It's always about the story you want to tell. Even in my photography, uh, simple pictures. I might see something in that picture or decided to take that picture because it's something that I can relate to. But the truly successful ones are ones that transcend what I read into the picture and create an environment or a mood or a lighting situation that somebody else can gain emotion or a feeling out of. And it's the same with my illustration work.
Do you have
it's a
certain
dance.
Yes, I love to dance. I don't know about you, but I love to dance. And you know, we tell stories too. It's I think it's sort of one of the fundamental common denominators, you know, of humankind, right?
Yeah,
Is that we're storytellers, and it's how we like to um, understand the world around us,
I think that's one
right?
of the things that sets off good illustration or good photography from mediocre. There's a lot of people who are talented renderers or talented, they know all the settings on their camera and can create a picture. But if it doesn't tell a story or it doesn't evoke emotion, I mean, they don't have to get the same feelings out of it that you do, but it has to lead them down a journey, and I think that's very important for successful illustration.
And do you in the process of your work, either in illustration or photography, um, do you know when it's happened? Or, you know, obviously you're trying to make it happen every single time, but does it happen every single time? Can you work at it until it happens? Or is there, you know, sometimes the magic happens and sometimes a little less magic happens?
Um, with illustration, I guess the story is a little more deliberate because the parameters are often defined for you. So you're
Hmm.
trying to be as creative within the parameters that are given to you. So they give you a whole list of, these are all the things it has to do, and then these are all the things that it can't do. And oh, by the way, still try to be creative and have it to us by Friday morning. So it's an incredible challenge that way. And um,
Which you like, or is that one of the things that you don't really love about your work?
there's nothing more scary to an artist than a blank canvas and say do whatever you want. Well, there's too many options then.
Uh-huh.
To me, it's, give me 100 limitations and then let me show you how I can knock it out of the park. That's that's my game. So, and with photography, it's a little different. I mean, there are ones that totally resonate with me, and when I'm editing through and deciding which photos that I want to put up or print for my booth or what have you, I'll go through multiple rounds of revisions. I'll put it away for a couple days, come back to it, see how it resonates, because I could get lost in the tiniest little details or the textures in certain areas, or the lighting on things. And especially with portraits, I really enjoy portraits because if you, I often do portraits more of a fly on the wall, especially when I'm going to the D-Day event or things like that. I rarely go out and pose people for it. I'm taking candid shots from a distance, and this the story that could be told with just the expression on people's face or what's happening, or the way you decide to develop the picture. And I say develop because you start out with your raw images, and then you can adjust the lighting and the textures and the overall feel and emotion of that picture. The end products can be incredibly powerful, and I just become captivated.
So how do you know when it's done? When time is up, when the client says, "I need it now," or you know, how do you know when you're done? Because as artists, I think we're perfectionists. Like you
Yeah.
say, you can just sort of get lost in the tiniest detail. So
The
when
older
do you
I
let
get,
go?
yeah, the older I get, the easier it is to figure out when you're done. And
Yeah.
some of it's based on time and or the budget of the project.
Uh-huh.
It's like they're not paying me to spend 3 more days to paint little hairs on everything, so it doesn't get done. So, but you get to the point where you kind of go over it, and sometimes again you put it away for if you have the time for a day or a night, and you come back and look at it fresh in the morning. I've learned not to send it off to the client when you finish at 2 in the morning. You wait till the next morning and come in, because you always see something with a fresh eye, and you go, oh crap, I can't believe I missed that. So,
Right,
but
right.
it's a game. It's
It's
a
like
dance.
when if somebody sends you an email and you're riled up, you're angry or
Yeah,
whatever,
sure.
and it's like you immediately just want
Don't
to
hit
spout off,
send.
and then it's like, yeah, don't hit send.
Yep.
In fact, if you're really smart, you're not even going to put their name in the
Yeah,
in the to box,
just in
right?
case. Yeah.
Just in case.
Yep. So yeah,
um
you figure it out. I mean, there are times where you're working on something, and then it's just pure magic. I mean, you see it develop in front of you.
mm,
Uh, with illustration, you're working on compositions, you're moving things around, and all of a sudden things just the rest of the room around you kind of goes dark, and you just become tunnel visioned,
yeah,
and you're just like it's all coming together. It's really working, and with photography too. I mean, you start out with the raw pictures, and you start adjusting things and cropping things, and you sometimes you don't realize what you've gotten until you got back and are in the studio working on it, and then things start to develop, and it's just magic.
yeah, yeah, magic. In my work, I find magic often happens when I'm working with someone else.
Hmm.
So if I'm working with the writer or the director, producer, someone who is directing me, let's say, and it's one of these situations where I think 1 + 1 = 3,
Yeah,
because it's that person's input and what I'm bringing, and then sort of this, the creation from that synergy into something that, I wouldn't have done if that person wasn't there,
yeah.
kind of creating with me. But
The
yours
most
is solitary work.
it is, but I often tell people, the check we get at the end of the job is fine, but the real reward is when you turn it in a client and they go, "Oh my God, this is 100 times." You've blown us away. That's our payment as an artist. That's when you've really done. I mean, you're happy with everything you do, but when you get, I mean, that's what you shoot for every time, not just to
Right.
be on time and turn it in and get paid.
Of
Our
course.
payment is when we knock it out of the park and blow someone's socks off.
Right.
So
Yeah, definitely.
I guess
Because
we're vain that way.
I don't know if that's what it is. It's, we're proud of our babies, right? And our projects are our babies.
Well, I think
And
I mean, the whole goal of what we do is to get a reaction out of people. That's why we have a piece of art,
mhm,
is to initialize or get
initiate.
somebody to respond.
Uh-huh.
Respond. So if you don't get that feedback, I've worked for art directors who, you pour yourself into a piece and turn it in. They're going, "Yep, yeah, okay, we'll send you a check." It's like, what? Is it all right? Yep, it's fine. What do you want? It's like, oh, come on, give me something. That'll work. Oh,
Well, listen, and those times you just have to know how to do this and say,
yeah.
you're really, proud of it, and you know what you're doing.
When you've turned in something good, but it's always
Yeah.
nice uh, to have that reassurance.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100% there. So, during this time of COVID, have you been doing any COVID work?
I do a lot of work in orthopedics.
Mm-hmm.
So the bulk of the orthopedic market has been shut down during COVID. Nobody's been in doing surgeries. So I was pretty much shut down from April through about the 1st of June.
Wow.
So yeah,
How'd you handle that?
um, I built a giant waterfall in my backyard.
That you'd been wanting to do for months
Yeah,
or years or
yeah,
something? Uh-huh.
yeah. We tore out the old one and built this giant project. So it was a lot of fun. But I'm glad to be away from manual labor and back at the desk again.
I
But
would
I
love
did.
to send me some pictures of it, okay?
I will do that.
I want to see what it looks like. Your COVID project. I'm sure you're
Yes,
I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I would bet that you're the only person who's built a water fountain in their backyard during COVID.
probably so. I figured it was about 3 tons worth of rock that we moved to build this thing.
Oh my
So
gosh. I
yeah,
can't wait to see what it looks like. Jeez.
so it is a ton of fun.
So
But I did
things
do
are
one
different.
project about a month or so ago. I worked on a project for a company who they have found out through the research that the COVID virus actually lives in the bones of the inner ear.
Oh
So when they do ear surgery with the little tiny burrs that they use, it just basically vaporizes all the particles of bone up into the air. So they've developed this whole, because they're all working on the microscopes and things like that. So they developed this tenting system that goes down and attaches to the patient and catches all the particles. So we had
wow.
to do an illustration showing this amorphous tent thing and draw a bag that looks kind of crumpled and full of wrinkles and make it look sexy. So it was okay, sure, I can do that. And then fill it full of all these particles on the inside. Yeah. So we did
You're,
it and it turned out great. And they were super happy with it.
can you share that image?
I have to double check because I've been paid, but I don't know if they printed it yet.
Uh-huh.
So I'll double check.
Okay, cool. Because
If not, I can send you one of the. I could probably send you one of the preliminaries or one of the raw model pictures,
yeah,
final
yeah,
renders.
definitely. I
So
think that would be cool to include, because obviously, everybody is clamoring for more information about COVID. And when you
yeah,
mentioned this project to me, I was like, what?
yeah.
So,
I was at the dentist the other day and asked him about it, and he was really
oh,
surprised.
oh,
He hadn't heard anything in the dental area, but I mean, I would imagine if it's
bone
in
is bone,
here,
right? Right?
you would think, but maybe not. He hasn't received any kind of guidance as far as worries, as far as dentistry goes. But
Uh,
I was
I
kind of
wonder who
surprised that they
discovered
didn't have.
that,
I
you
don't
know.
know.
Interesting. Yeah,
It is a crazy little bug.
yeah, really. Alive? Is it alive?
Yes, because it's
Because I,
affecting us, so it has to be alive at some level.
right. Um, and by the way, is everybody in your family, has everybody been safe and healthy?
Knock on wood, everybody's healthy at the moment.
Hmm.
So my mother-in-law, who's 93, lives with us, so we're extra precautious. But I feel sorry for my kids because my one daughter who got a semester at college got sent home, and she's been at home ever since. They went back, but because all of her classes could be online, she's stuck online. So she gets one semester of freedom and adulthood, and now it's living at home again. But my other two older ones, they all got sent back, so they're back at school. And my youngest one is in high school, and they started back 2 weeks ago. So
So all three are in school. So one's
I have four, one in high
four. Oh,
school, three in college.
wow.
So I
Okay. Well,
work around the clock.
yeah, right. Ouch. Um, and where are they in school? The three who are in college? Or obviously,
They're all
remotely.
state schools.
Uh-huh.
So University of Akron, which is about 45 minutes from here. Two of them are and then one's at Ohio University.
Uh-huh.
So down
And
by Columbus.
and they're also work from home, right? Or they went back or they're on
The two in
campus.
Akron are back at school because
Wow.
one of their classes had to be in person, so they got to leave home and go back to their apartments. But But Ivy, the one who goes to Ohio University, all of her went online, so she's been stuck at home.
Uh-huh.
So
It's well, I have three kids, and my two daughters are back at school remotely,
yeah,
and we were lucky because I've I have I've had this home upstate for about 27 years, and it's been a real godsend for us on
hmm
special occasions like 9/11 because we live very close to 9/11 to Ground Zero in the city.
wow,
Um, and March 13th, on the 14th, my husband and two daughters and we were supposed to go down to Belize. We had a trip planned there for spring
nice,
break. And in the 11th hour, my husband, Michael, said, I just don't know if this is a good idea.
yeah,
And that was literally then, like, the next day was like when everything kind of shut down. And the question was, will our president let us back in the country? What if
well,
we get
yeah,
sick there? Where are you going to go to a hospital in Belize? What if you get somewhere on the plane, you come down with a
yeah.
fever and they won't let you, leave the
Well, I had
airport,
planned,
right? And they won't let you get back on the plane and you're two
yeah,
weeks quarantining so we
we had
decided,
planned a trip to Scandinavia up there to take some winter photographs of the Northern Lights and everything.
yeah,
And we were afraid, if we got there, we wouldn't get back. So we ended up canceling the whole thing.
right,
So
right.
it's a scary time.
Um, well, let me ask you this. Tell me a little bit about the process that you go through for a typical job.
Um, a lot of what I do now is for product manufacturers. So, like I said, I'm doing a lot of work in orthopedics these days.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Medical device illustrations.
yeah, medical device illustrations, surgical techniques, things of that nature.
Mm.
So the clients will send me their rough alpha layout of what they're planning on showing, and we'll review that and talk about ideas about how to better showcase it, or what illustrations are needed or not needed, or how to show things more clearly. And then we'll define out the parameters, and then they send me all the CAD models to the parts that are used,
Uh-huh.
and then I work up the 3D illustrations and things of that nature, or build what I need to build. Sometimes I have to um, build devices or parts, like the big tent that I had to build for that protection system for the COVID.
And when you say build it on the computer, right?
Yeah, I build it in
Right.
3D in a
Uh-huh.
computer, and like ZBrush or a 3D modeling program, and then I take that into my rendering application that I use, um, and KeyShot, and that's what I do all of my rendering and most of my animation stuff in. So
Um, and you use the word alpha. I've never heard that term used before as an
as they're
initial
routing it
sketch.
through, yeah, when they're
Uh-huh.
routing it through, and they start out with an alpha or a beta of the technique, and so it's not set in stone yet, so it's
Uh-huh.
open for revisions.
Uh-huh. I gotcha. I gotcha. Uh-huh. So it's a draft,
Yeah.
draft stage. Um, and do you find that there's a lot of back and forth with your clients around these? Because they're not artists, right? So they don't know.
It depends on the client.
Hmm.
Some of the ones, majority of my work comes from a couple main clients, and I've been working with them for years. So they're pretty good at putting together, mocking up a rough mock-up of what they're looking for. So, and then I know how far I can push that. And,
Hmm.
if they send it to me, straight side view, and I realize that it's going to show it a little better as a 3/4, I know I have carte blanche with them to
Mm.
do that, or submit that, or pitch that. Whereas other
Hmm.
ones, it's just, we sent it to you this way. That's exactly what we want. Why are you using your mind at all? Sorry, I thought you paid me to think, but apparently not.
Oh, That's fun.
So that's a dance you have to figure out with all clients, because some want it just literally an exact copy of what they scratched on their cocktail napkin. And if you try to deviate from that, they're like, "Well, why didn't you follow directions?"
I
It's
had
like
a
crap. That's why.
I had a client once who, it was a long, like e-learning project, and there were lots of mistakes in the script,
Yeah.
in tense or whatever. And it happens to be a skill of mine, editing. And so, but also if it's wrong, you want to read it right, right? It's obviously wrong kind of
Absolutely.
thing. And I got admonished because they said, no, you have to read it exactly as it is on the page, because once it comes back to us and it goes up the chain of command, they need to know that they made those mistakes.
Nice.
And then it will come back down, corrected, for you to do again.
Yeah.
It's like, wow,
Well, we'll get to the point on some of these. Um, we'll find something that's wrong somewhere in the stage, and they're like, "Oh, well, this has already been through legal. It's already been cleared. You can't
MLR,
change it."
right.
I'm like, "The guy's got 6 fingers. Well, what do you mean I can't? No, no, we can't go back." I'm like, "Okay."
Right, right, right.
Bizarre.
Yeah, well, when I'm doing, medical narration, if it's been through MLR, you cannot make a conjunction. You cannot, change a period. You can't,
Yeah.
And of course they may say to you, well, we want you to read it conversationally. And the first thing to do to make something conversational is to take your two words and make them into a conjunction.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
we're da 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 da, we are blah blah blah. No, but no 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 no. Every word as it's written has to be read that way. So you're right. It's an important thing to find out,
Yeah.
at the top of the hour.
When I work on things like cover illustrations for magazines, or more conceptual, maybe a product brochure, the cover for a manuscript or something like that, you have a lot more creative input on things like that. During the COVID, I worked on this project for Nature Physics magazine for this group of researchers who were studying how they can choose or encourage evolution to take certain paths by controlling their environment, controlling stimuli that is known to affect the mutation rates of certain cell structures. And by doing this, they can forcibly encourage the evolution process to take certain turns. So
Such
they got
as, was there an example?
um so like in certain cancer treatments,
Mm-hmm.
if you take a drug that actually will kill the cancer outright, it'll kill the person. By the time you increase the dose high enough to kill the cancer, you're going to create irreparable harm to the person. But they have found that if they take, because they know that that cancer cell mutates at a certain rate and it's reproducible, it happens over and over again, they can expose the cancer cell to an agent that will mutate it in a certain way, which then will make it susceptible to a second or third drug. So going through 2 or 3 rounds of drugs to get it to mutate to the point where they can then attack it successfully, they
Wow.
have found that they can treat it that way.
Wow, that's
So
fascinating.
yeah, and they're doing the same kind of things for developing like drought-resistant crops and things of that nature. So the cells won't mutate fully to the point they want with one treatment or one exposure. So they're encouraging the mutations to take certain turns along the way to get it to the point where then they can affect it.
Mm-hmm.
So they came up with these. It was one of those projects where the list was a mile long of all the things that they wanted to show in this thing, and how I had to show cold fusion, and they're using these tricks on how they control the atoms in cold fusion, and then working this into Darwin finches and evolving into that, because Darwin father of evolution and evolutionary physics, they're calling this, and the migration and the different patterns. And my head was spinning at the end of this conversation as I'm writing down notes as quickly as I can. He's like, "You get that all right?" And I blurted out some wild concept that, mentally what was coming in my head. And he's like, "Oh my God, that's incredible. Go with that." And then I hang up the phone and I'm like, "What did I say?"
Oh, jeez.
So went back and forth, and they absolutely were blown away. They loved it, but it's probably one of the most complicated things I've ever worked at, trying to work so many different concepts into one illustration.
Oh, I want to see that one too. I mean, yeah, I'm okay. I'm,
Yeah,
I've got a list of things that I want you to send me,
yeah, I
right?
can definitely show you that one.
So that, right. We also had the COVID year, maybe an earlier generation, and your waterfall. Waterfall. And what are we calling this last one? It was Nature. What was the name of the magazine?
Um, it's for Nature Physics magazine.
Nature Physics. Okay. All right. This way, at least, if you don't remember, I have some tiny reference point. Animation never interested you, or it's just, there's plenty for you to do with everything?
99% of what I do is for print.
Uh-huh.
I guess I'm a dinosaur. I do animation. All the software that I use to do the 3D stuff
Right.
does animation as well. Just 99% of my clients call me for print work. And, you made a comment earlier about how, when do you know it's done? And to me, animation is the epitome of that, because there's a million things that you can adjust, and timing, texture, lighting, rotation, movement, angle of the camera. It's like mind numbing. And there's so much to do, and it's so as detail oriented as it is to do a picture. You're multiplying it by a factor of 20 to do an animation, and to do it well, to do it at the same level that I do illustration. It's a tremendous amount of work to do. So the animation that I do is, I don't get into the super fancy Hollywood type animation. My stuff is more simple rotation, movement, dissolves, things of that nature. I do some of it, and I can do the other stuff, but I don't do it on a regular basis to make it time effective for me, because the tools are always changing and doing it. I can figure it out, but it's going to take me, a week to remember how to do, look up how to do it again. So
Right. Right.
so,
Right. Well, listen, 99% of your work. I mean, why would you turn and go someplace else when it's all there in front of you?
It's moving in that direction. I'm doing more and more of it.
Oh.
And I love the print work. I love being able to capture that moment in time, and have that tangible results, versus, here, play this animation to see what I did. I love that moment in time concept. And I know, I hope I can stretch this out to the end of my career, where I don't have to 100% reinvent myself the way others have. I mean, I look at friends in the field who, were here when the computers took over, and they had to reboot their entire career midstream from doing traditional to computers. And I'm hoping to straddle that evolution of everything moving, and not have to fully make that transition. So.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel that way just in general in life, right? That, if you don't try to keep up to some degree, then you will surely fall behind to almost every degree, whether it's,
I mean, I'm not opposed to doing it and working on certain projects, but I really, being a one-man studio, so many of these really complicated things take 3 or 4 people working on this thing for months at a time, and it's just, I'd rather work on something else that I can turn around.
So you said earlier that the more limitations somebody gives you, the more excited you are, if,
Yes.
sort of paraphrasing. Um, what are the challenges, the tough challenges that don't excite you about your work and your field, and
What
whether
is
it's
not
also being
exciting?
what's that?
What is not exciting?
Yeah,
Or
what are your challenges that, I mean, you said before, you talked about challenges when people give you, a million constraints, but you turn that into a positive. To you, that's not a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge, but it's a positive thing.
yeah.
So are there parts of what you do that you don't like, or that are hard for you?
Um, I think the biggest challenge for self-employed people is, where the next job is going to come. And the internet has made some of that easier, but then the internet has also made that, you know, infinitely more difficult because your competition is 2 clicks away at any
Right,
given moment.
right.
And somebody's always out there trying to underbid or change you. So building those relationships and trying to build a relationship in today's market of where people just I just want you to do what I told you to do. I don't care. Just there's so little personal involvement these days, and
Mm.
um, you find art directors and things of that nature less invested than they used to be, seemingly so.
Why do you
So
think that is? Is it just the pace of the world right now? Is it,
I think it is to a point, and then I think it's an art director used to get a job and they'd be in that for 10, 15 years or 20 years working
mm,
for the same magazine or same company. And now the turnover rate is so high. And um, somebody told me one time that when you work for an art director, 9 times out of 10, or even a client, uh, they really don't care if you're going to give them an incredible piece of work. Their fear is that you're not going to deliver on time and you're going to make them look bad.
huh,
So it's really hard to get somebody super happy and in your camp who only cares about whether you turn it in on time.
uh-huh. Yeah,
So
interesting.
um,
I've
I
heard
don't.
that. I've heard that before, that, we care about the work a little bit more than they
Yeah.
do.
Well, hey, if we did it like this, we could really make it. No, no, no. Just get it to me on Friday. Well,
Right.
but we could no.
Uh-huh.
Just you care. They care about themselves.
Right. Right.
I
Well, I
guess there's a
find
little too much of all that going around these days.
yeah, word. Um, so tell me, do you think that anybody can learn to draw?
I think so. I've talked to hundreds. All artists have talked to hundreds of people. Say, "Oh, I can't draw a straight line," and I think it's a cop out. I think
Uh-huh.
anybody who really wants to understand it or wants to truly try, uh, it's some people have an inherent ability. Some people can just visually, translate easier than other people.
Sounds like you
Uh,
do. Would you agree?
huh?
I said it sounds like you do. Would you agree that you have an inherent ability?
Yeah, I think I was born with a foundation, so to speak. But I
Uh-huh.
think anybody can get to a certain point if that's what interests you. You have to have the interest.
Right.
If I casually sit down to play the piano, I can tap at some keys. But if I'm not really interested in it, you know, I'm never going to get anywhere. But if I got short, stubby fingers, I'm never going to be a concert pianist. So I mean, there are limits anywhere you go. To me, one big thing I think that separates art and photography is there's good technicians out there.
Mm.
There are good technical photographers. There are good technical artists or technical illustrators. But I think the pure artists are fewer and farther in
Mm.
between.
I know photography is a super important part of your life and your world. I remember seeing your photos of Iceland. We connected on that, and I was, as you used the word earlier, that clients have said to you, I was blown away, really, really blown away by your work. How much time do you say, is spent doing photography and how much is doing illustration?
Oh, it depends how lucky I am. These days, I'm not doing any photography because we're all under lockdown. I'm
Uh-huh.
itching to get out. But I try to take at least 2 or 3 trips a year
Mm.
to go out and do things and explore because I find it helps with my creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking about doing a lecture at the AMI about photography and how it helps me to see things.
Mm.
And I've gotten to the point now where I get so bad about it that I make my wife drive when we're going through the country because I'm always looking for the next picture. And I'm taking pictures in my mind and compositions and like, ooh, that would work really well, or this, that, and the other thing. And it's helped me a tremendous amount in my illustration aspect because you look at lighting, you look at texture, you look at composition or forms and things of that nature, and it's about telling a story and what works. And I had professors like David Mascaro, who's he's passed away now, but he's a very well known medical illustrator, and he used to go to he showed me a book in his office was fine art paintings, and he would go to and he'd look at the compositions of these paintings and incorporate these compositions into his medical artwork using the same compositional structure that was in a famous painting, because he's like, well, if it worked there, why wouldn't it work here? And
Sure.
and that's a valid point, because a lot of what we do is really artwork, and it's just different subject matter.
Right.
But the photography, I learned a tremendous amount about lighting, texture, storytelling. I can work on 100 compositions in an afternoon, whereas illustration wise, I may work on 2 or 3.
Mm.
So it just allows you to play with things infinitely quicker and do all kinds of experimentation. So what I do find interesting is you've seen some of my photography that looks more painterly,
Mm-hmm.
and I find that my photography is becoming more illustrative, and my illustration is becoming more realistic. So I strive for hyperrealism in my illustration work, and my photography is becoming more like illustrations.
How interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you get a lot of your inspiration from the natural world around you. I'm curious to know if there are other places that are sort of sources of inspiration for you, A. And the second part of the question is, when you're taking all these pictures, or, are you cataloging these ideas in any way, shape, or form that you can go back to as as sort of your own little library of inspirational colors, shapes, whatever it is that you've collected over the years?
Um, well, inspiration wise, I mean, I'm always looking at stuff from the AMI salon to attending the AMI conventions, things of that, looking at other people's work. Friended a bunch of artists on Instagram, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing. Almost every evening, my downtime, I'm scanning through Instagram or Facebook and looking at other artists' work and what they're doing, and mentally taking notes or saving pictures to a gallery or a favorites list to go back and reference. And sometimes before I go out on a photo shoot, I'll go through and I'll review some of the the idea folders, and I'll do the same thing for illustration works if I'm looking for a particular style or look or feel, or I'll often go to that photo gallery or that reference folder and look at things to get interest from.
And I'm curious to know about your family life a little bit. So is everybody, super supportive of, of this kind of all-encompassing way that you take in the world? You know, like, honey, you do the driving, you know, is she like down with that? Or is she like, you know, wouldn't you take the wheel sometime? And
I
the kids,
have
anybody, an artist in the family, you know, besides you?
I have probably the most understanding wife on the planet.
That's a good thing.
she's she's very patient with my crazy. So you know, when I started doing the photography, the kids were much younger, and it was a way to get out of the house, to get some exercise, to do things. And at the beginning, I started out. I said to myself, I got to get out from behind this desk. So every weekend, we went to a different park near the house, and had a different kid in tow. And Dad, I'll come with you. Come with you. And as they got older, and we started to run out of parks in the area, you know, the circle got bigger, and things like that, and the trips got more extreme, and photography got more serious. And but they realized that if they're going with me on a trip, that they're gonna be, Dad, come on, how many's enough? Let's go. But they're relatively patient. So, but my wife is really good about it, because we've gone on trips together, and I find I do some of my best work when she's around. And
that's nice. She's your muse, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I call her. And we just we took a trip on our 25th anniversary. We went to Iceland and the Faroe Islands, and I was skeptical about it. I'm like, "Are you sure? I mean, this is our, you know, second honeymoon. Are you sure you're gonna let me bring my cameras with me?" She's like, "Yeah, not a problem." And it just worked. Um, when I get in the zone and she's there with me, and you're looking, and I think she gets drawn into it too. She starts to look in a way that she wouldn't look before. And sometimes she's like, "Yeah, you need a picture of that." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that." I'm like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So, but I think she finds it interesting watching me in my process of how I go about figuring out what's important to me, or what I think is important. And she likes going on the trips. So
yeah, right. That, you know, parenthetically. So I have two more questions for you. One is, name one thing or more that you collect. Do you collect anything?
I collect old radios.
Okay.
The big old wooden Tombstone radios.
Wow.
So
How many of those do you have?
I think I have 12 of them.
Wow. And how did that come to pass?
It was about the sculpture aspect of them, because they're almost a piece of sculpture, and the design and the fancy woodwork and things like that. And I picked up one at an antique show and refinished the whole thing. And one leads to two, which leads to three. And, you know, the next they say is history. So
that's right. Okay, I know. One more thing I want a picture of, the old the old radios. And if you could pick up a new skill in an instant, what would it be?
music, some sort of instrument, I guess. When my son was younger, we took guitar lessons together, and he really took off on it, and I plunked along. And it's been quite a few years since I picked up my guitars, and it'd be fun to get back to it again. And the most difficult thing about guitar, well, as an artist, so much of it's in the hands and the fingers, and you're using your hands in a way that is so different than what you do on a regular basis. It's actually quite painful. Moving your fingers and so forth, and that's the biggest struggle to starting and stopping something like that. But
interesting.
But it's a lot of fun. So I'd love to get back to playing guitar again.
Interesting. They're different muscles. Like, you know, you can do the same workout all the time and you're good, and then you do something different and you're like, why is this so hard for me? Because it's, you know, right. Different. So is there anything that you would like people to know about you that I haven't touched on, or that, you know?
My biggest mantra is I tell I tell everybody to take more pictures, practice seeing.
Uh-huh. Practice
You know,
seeing.
we spend so much time going around doing things, and there's an art to seeing. Uh,
Yeah.
seeing what's in front of you, or slowing down a bit to just drink in all the relationship of everything that's around you, be it nature, be it the noise of the water flowing, or the wind through the trees, and just spend some time drinking it all in, I guess.
That's beautiful. I love that. There's an art to seeing.
Yeah.
Um, I experience that too when I'm in my garden. The more time I spend with a plant or a tree or, flower, whatever it is, the better I get to know it, the more detail I see in it, and the more love I have for it, you know.
It translates a lot into what we do as medical illustrators, because often we're taking something that's microscopic and blowing it up so big to where people can truly appreciate it, and giving them a new perspective on things.
Hmm.
And there's inspiration in all kinds of things. I don't know if you've been to the AMI and seen the fine art gallery that was put online, but we have some amazing fine artists,
Yes.
and um, we can all learn more from exploring those things and incorporate those, uh, that aspect of art into what we do. I had a teacher in college who said, it was my painting teacher, and he's like, it was during my second year where you had to choose your major, and he
Hmm.
asked me what I was doing, and I told him medical illustration. He's like, why would you want to do something like that? You're
Oh
so
dear.
creative. You're such an individual. Why would you do something like that?
Oh dear.
And
Uh,
it really struck a chord. I mean, all these years now, I still remember this. But I find medical illustration one of the most creative things that I can do. And I had friends who, when I started doing all the photography, it's like, why would you do something? You're an illustrator. You tell stories. You have all this freedom to do what you want with your illustrations. Why would you just be clicking a button? I'm like, well, look at my pictures. My pictures, the raw picture I take is really just the canvas that I start with.
mm.
It doesn't look anything like that when I'm done with it. I don't let reality get in the way of a good story, I often say.
Well, I so many people have those stories of, the teacher who told them, oh, you're never going to make, you'll be
Yeah,
flipping burgers, and then,
yeah,
and
yeah.
start Microsoft, whatever it is, right? We've heard them. So, thank you for sharing that one too. Is the guy still, did he know how successful you've become? Did he
No,
learn how
I
wrong
haven't
he
never
was?
run. I don't know. I haven't run into him since, but
Well,
I enjoy what I do immensely.
right.
So
Right. Well, it
great.
shows. Your work is magnificent, and I really appreciate you taking a little time to chat with me about it, so I can let, open the curtains a little bit and,
Well, I
show the
appreciate all
world.
your efforts too. I mean, it's a great series that you've been doing.
Yeah, I think people are really interested and appreciate it. And I know that the AMI is going to be doing their own a podcast series
Mm-hmm.
where they're interviewing, it's called Pillars of the AMI. I've been involved with a project because I'm narrating the intro and outro of the podcast, and Russ McLaughlin has done the music for it.
Nice.
But my a lot of my audience, they don't really understand or know from your field. And look, there are only like 2,000 of you. I've heard that statistic. Um, in the U.S., how many more are there around the world? I don't know, but I think COVID has sort of blown the cover off, and people are interested. And the fact of the matter is, talking about seeing, they don't even know how much you do that they see all the time. That
Yeah.
would be my guess, right?
Well, I hear that a lot. It's like, oh, I never, yeah, yeah, you're the guy. I didn't think that was a thing. I never even gave it a thought.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a thing.
it's a thing.
Well, thanks, Wayne. I really
Oh, thank
appreciate it,
you.
and
So
I'll
what am
let
I
you.
sending you?
So you're sending me the COVID ear,
Irwin?
your COVID project, the waterfall,
Wonderful.
your the nature physics,
Yeah.
and your some pictures of your old radios, and anything else you want to send me.
Do you want one of my photos?
I would love a photo, absolutely.
Okay.
And even and send me one of you too. And I'm happy. I'll let you read the blog post before I publish it to make sure that it's
Oh, I
copacetic.
trust you.
Okay. Well,
All right. Well, how quickly do you need this stuff?
I'm not gonna get to this until probably next week.
Okay. Well, I'll get to you
So
sometime this week.
awesome. That'd be
All right.
terrific. Thank
Great.
you. It's a
All right. If
pleasure.
you need anything else, yeah.
Okay.
Same here. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.